Okay. So basically, this is the beer. That's most important. Water and.
You think without the beer it's not gonna be
Yeah.
fun because you're gonna make it boring?
So and
That's a lot of beer.
yeah, that's good. And what I would like to talk today is basically nuclear fusion, right? So basically, all of us probably know what is basically how does it work, right? So idea is actually, why do we care, right? One of the questions is, well, basically, it's of course it's a source of it's potentially a good source of energy, right? Because like according to the estimation, you know, in 50, 70 years, we should run out of the oil, coal, and other basically conventional source of energy. So we need to find something more. Like, you know, of course there is a fission. This is good, and this is like good potential. However, you know, still, you know, uranium, this resource is limited in.
Not if you reprocess and use thorium.
But actually, how does it work? Maybe you can then tell me, like, you know, because I understand, like, uranium is actually it's not much uranium in the Earth. My understanding, it's.
Oh, there's a lot of uranium.
Yeah. So Australia is full of uranium.
It is good for thousands of years, but it is very dirty way to produce energy.
Okay.
Well, no, it's dirty because we don't put any
We don't
effort in
reprocess it.
research.
If you reprocess it, you just keep burning it. I mean, it's basically a renewable resource.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go to thorium, there's 3 times as much thorium as there is uranium. And thorium opens up a whole new avenue for fission reactors.
All right.
So you think that current technology is so bad that they just put this in storage somewhere?
I think if you use fission right,
Mhm.
we could basically go for a long time. I mean, the problem with fission right now is we don't reprocess it. So you got to worry about all those radioactive materials, mostly the transuranic ones. But those can be burned, but you have to reprocess it. But the reason they don't reprocess it, people say, well, you get plutonium then. I would say, so what? I mean, plutonium can be burned too.
Yes.
I mean, it makes a nice fuel.
Yes.
In fact, we use it as a fuel in some
Exactly,
reactors.
yeah. So what's problem with that? I think the whole
I
chemistry is very
I think it's
dangerous.
psychological.
It's a psychological problem. It's not a technical problem. I mean, there's no.
So here's one more. This is Tom Roder. He's originally from Germany. He works at Center for High Technology Materials. He's molecular beam growers. He's scientist and engineer. So basically, come on in. Sit.
Alright, thanks.
Okay, so
I'm Bill.
yeah, this is Bill. He is a scientist from Sandia. He was actually at some degree was also like worked with high energy, like was a high energy physicist.
Yeah.
You know, I think you know all.
Yeah, we all know.
Okay. We was very interesting point here about just normal atomic energy.
Yeah, basically, right now the question is actually, Tom, I think it might be of somewhat interesting to you. You know, we're kind of debating why do we care about fusion. Actually, one of this is kind of like Bill say, why do you need fusion? Now, of course, you know, like all the fossil fuels energy sources, they are limited, and I would say we run out of oil, like say, like in 40, 60 years, right? Like maybe coal can.
We'll probably never run out of oil, right? It has always been extended.
Yes.
Every decade.
It'll just be more expensive.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
No, maybe it's right, because then you have to go deeper, maybe going to the North Pole, so that's.
Well, it's the greenhouse gases that.
Right, exactly, and it's greenhouses, and of course another thing it's fission, right? We can always go for fission, right? And this is.
We know where this leads to.
No, it doesn't have to be. It's a psychological problem.
Well, not really, right? Is it?
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Yes, no, because there is a danger of accident,
Yes.
and then with huge contamination.
Yeah, well, but if we put enough effort, we can.
But you can reprocess all of that. I mean, pull out the transuranic elements, reprocess it, and then burn it.
Yeah, you think,
I mean,
you
the
think you can
plutonium
do-
is a good fuel.
Okay.
I don't know, we need to just to make more robust reactors, right?
See, but
more,
the thing is that doable and if with the, you know, it's all political, right? It's all
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
people that make the decisions, and that it's psychology driven, and I don't think, frankly, I don't think it is possible to do that.
Well,
because of
For
psychology,
human
all the-
society, yeah, because of psychology and politics. It will never be possible to make really safe reactors. Technically, it's no problem, but I don't think the effort will be done out of political and psychological
Oh,
reasons.
it'll be done when other choices get too expensive.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, if
true,
you tell
yeah.
somebody we can put up a nuclear reactor or you can go without electricity, they will put up a nuclear reactor.
Yeah, I believe
No,
so.
they will. The question is if it is run in a safe way.
Oh, well, they can be run safely. In fact, the new
Okay.
generations,
Fully automated.
the new generations are
can be,
fail-safe. They can be made fail-safe.
Well, fail-safe is always, you know, there's so much that you can do. Like the one in Japan was also.
Oh, but that's a first-generation reactor, and that's not fail-safe. It
No, but
required pumps.
Okay.
But you can design the pellet reactor, for example, design, if it starts running away, and the coefficient of thermal expansion pushes the fuel elements away so that it shuts
okay.
down.
I see.
You can design, they're talking about using, putting reactors out in the ocean where you have an infinite heat sink. and it can't run away. I mean, because you don't have to worry about pumping. You got something there that'll take all the heat away without any problems.
But what about contaminations? What is
The
it?
contamination means you need to reprocess it. I mean, this is bullshit, burying all this radioactive stuff underground. We ought to be reprocessing it and using it again. Because plutonium is a good fuel. I
Yes.
mean, we can take the uranium, keep hitting it with neutrons, convert it to the 235, burn it again, just keep burning it. We got thorium to use,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of thorium in the world. And thorium makes a very nice power reactor. I mean, it's a little harder to work with than uranium, but once you get it going, it goes.
So I have some, not objection, but some points. So we have neutron radiation. So unfortunately, if neutron is free, it will be absorbed by some nucleus, became mostly also radioactive, also produce some neutron, and so on. So whatever you isolation do from ocean, some neutron will be coming to ocean, right? And make radioactive contaminations, right?
Well, you'll have the neutrons going out, but the thing you worry about on contamination is the long life stuff. And that's all the transuranic stuff. I mean, you get stuff like iron, so you know, you wait 12 years and the half-life goes down. I mean, the stuff they worry about is the stuff they're putting down at WIP, where they say you got 10,000 year half-life. But that stuff is a good fuel, and we shouldn't be burying it.
Where
We should-
are they putting it?
Well, they're not putting it in WIP now, but they keep thinking they're going to. Originally, it was supposed to go into Yucca Flats, a big mountain, but that's got killed by Reed, who's the leader of the Senate. Because Reed, you know, on a good day, he might get 2 neurons firing at the same time, but he never gets more than 2. And, I mean, that guy is just incredibly stupid. But he killed the Yucca Mountain thing in Nevada. But I mean, Carter was the one that stopped his reprocessing because he said it produces plutonium. Yeah, so what? I mean, plutonium's a good fuel. It's a great fuel.
That was because of the nuclear weapons. Like,
Yeah, but you know, that's,
That's political.
These are
you know, fire
political
makes a
and
good weapon
psychological
too, and
Yeah.
you know, we've learned how to handle fire.
And then maybe I would say it also can be looking at a different way, right? You have a good piles of old nuclear rockets, right? Like nuclear weapons, like in the United States, Russia, France, you know, like different countries, right? I hope people understands that, like, you know, basically it's not very wise thing, like, to use them to kill each other, right? So that can be used as basically to like a fuel.
Well, we bought quite a few tons of weapons-grade plutonium from the Soviet Union. When they had trouble, we actually had a program to buy it from the Soviet Union because they had trouble storing it safely. And then we turn that into a fuel. We actually burn it in reactors. It's called MUX. I mean, you mix it up with some other rods because the weapons grade plutonium is too hot for a reactor, and it burns, makes electricity out of it. And we ought to be doing the same stuff with our plutonium.
I was kind of curious, like, you know, like, is there a way, like, could be this, like, fuel which was in the rockets, or like in, basically, like, in nuclear weapons, is it getting old? Is there, it's basically, you know, like, is it, like, does it losing its potency?
No, not the weapons. What loses the potency on the weapons are the components in it. For example, a lot of the weapons use stuff like tritium, which has a 12-year half-life. And so stuff like tritium has got to be replaced. But the pits, I mean, they're good forever. I mean, this whole thing about refurnishing nuclear weapons is bullshit. And it's designed to be a make-work project for the National Laboratory. Once you have a pit, that pit is going to be good forever. And all you have to worry about is the stuff like the tritium and a few other things like that that do have limited life, but we already know how to take care of that. And then the stuff like the radars. I mean, the radars, a lot of the radars in the early weapons were designed with vacuum tubes, for example. And so you can't buy the vacuum tubes anymore. But you know, for 50 bucks, you could go to UNM and tell a double E, I want you to design me a radar. And for 50 bucks, they'll give you a radar that'll work. And that's all you need. And you know, to say we need $1 billion to refurnish the B-61, that's bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
So what's the pit? What you saying, the pit?
Well, the pit is the combination of plutonium and the hydride for the hydrogen. The pit is the thing that actually goes boom. And then you need all the other stuff around the pit to make it go boom. And it's the stuff around the pit, the radar, for example, and some of the timing sequences that have to happen. Those things need to be replaced occasionally. But the pit, I mean, it'll last forever.
So basically, then we can say it's pretty good. We can basically all the piles, which in Russia and the United States are different, like other European or Asian countries, right? So if people want to use it for fission, right, they can basically recycle that. So basically, this effort for producing them money, actually, that was not a bad idea. You know, basically that can be used. The only thing, kind of like I've seen point, and I don't know too much about this, but what I've seen, that they say that, you know, also the cost of the basically nuclear energy, it also depends how much money you spend on basically recycling the waste. And so far, there is not a very good way how they can recycle it. And that was because nobody want to waste. So a lot of people are afraid of basically contaminations related to that, and that's kind of increasing the cost of the like conventional.
Well, it's easier to recycle it than it actually is to make the weapons grade uranium and plutonium in the first place.
But why does it? Why
because
does it?
in effect, the fuel rods from a reactor are very good ores. I mean, you look at it as an ore. I mean, it's basically pure uranium plus, you know, the boron, krypton, the other side effects, and the plutonium. And that's better than what you start with. I mean, what you start with is a ton of rock, which is probably going to give you a few ounces of uranium. And so this is much better. It's a lot easier to recycle.
So
But-
why don't they do this?
Yeah.
Well, they don't do it because people say, well, my God, if you recycle, you're going to get plutonium. And that's weapons material. So what? I mean,
So the
you can use it.
This
I
is
mean, you
basically
don't-
just political
It's
bullshit.
a political issue. The whole issue with fission is all political.
Right.
There are no technical engineering issues with fission. It's all political. I mean, the new generation reactors can be made literally fail-safe. The recycling can take care of the waste problem, so it's not a big issue. And then we've got all these other options with thorium and everything else. I mean, we could make fission reactors literally for 1,000 years before we run out of material.
No, let's think about what we are going to be doing in the next 1,000 years after we run.
We're going to be killed by meteorite because we don't care about space anymore. We care about satellites.
Well, guys, my understanding.
I know what's gonna happen.
That's nice.
Well, that's nice. But let's still think that, like, maybe we could use some kind of things to, like, avoid this meteorites, like, kind of.
But people don't work on it. And talk to people of our age. At conferences, I always start this conversation. And they're like, oh, this is Pascal's wager. The probability of being hit by a meteorite is so low. That happened to me last time in May on a conference. And then in Chelyabinsk, a little guy fell about in a month. And I'm like, oh, don't worry, we better be richer, we have hunger to solve, we have this is an improbable event, why would we waste money there? I'm like, okay.
See, that's the political issues, that's the politics and the psychology that has killed the nuclear power.
Yeah, I believe, no, of course there is a problem. I think probably what it looked to me, like to my understanding of that, there was a huge interest in nuclear physicists, in the late 70s and beginning of 80s. But But what I've seen is after the 85, when Chernobyl was blown up, that's when, like, I've seen the interest to this basically start decreasing exponentially. So what do you want?
So my question to you, okay, we probably can do reactor, fission reactor fail-safe, but what is about terrorist attack?
What is it about what?
Terrorist attacks, like, like Al Qaeda, or like some guys who want to blow up reactor, like.
It's like you have a bomb inside, like ready to set inside of
it won't be a bomb. I mean, you could make a dirty bomb.
Yes.
But if we've actually taken you've seen the containment vessels we use. And by the way, one of the problems with Chernobyl is because it was a socialist reactor. This is a quote, by the way, from the Russians, that socialist reactors don't need containment vessels. And so they didn't have a containment vessel.
But why
if
did
they had a
they
containment vessel, there never would have been a problem with Chernobyl.
But
they didn't have a containment
Why
vessel.
did they put it? Just did we make it cheaper?
That's that big, oh yeah, it's a lot cheaper, because I mean, that's a lot of concrete. But we have actually taken an F-4, the Phantom jet, and run it into a containment vessel. We did it on a rocket sled out there to see if you could take an airplane and break these things open. It won't go open. I mean, there's no way you're going to put an explosive. I mean, you would need literally probably a kiloton of dynamite to open
but I
a
think,
containment
but I think
vessel.
Sasha means internal attacks, like hacker attacks and things like that.
Well, see, the old
Not
reactors,
external stuff.
the old reactors are easy to sabotage. You just have to take out water pumps. But the new reactors, you can't sabotage them. Unless you can defy gravity or thermal expansion. And the old reactors are dangerous. They're very dangerous. And they're designed stupidly. I mean, the French are the only ones that have done reactors the right way. And what the French do is they get a design and they do about 10 of these designs, 20 of them. They're on NP4 right now. They're in their 4th version of reactors. And they're all identical. We have about 120 working reactors, and every single one is different. And that's a stupid way to do it. I mean, we don't even build cars that way. And it's dumb. But the new reactors, I mean, the old reactors are going to have to be phased out anyway, because they do have lifetime limits. And the new reactors are literally fail-safe.
So even if there's a, I mean, from inside when you run it, the controls,
you cannot fuck it up. Even if you wanted to, you cannot fuck it up. And the old ones you can. As the Soviets found out. I mean, they were actually playing around and to see what would happen if they did a few. And they found out what would happen. And our reactors are the same way. I mean, you can do stupid stuff. And the old reactors are very dangerous. Except that they will not, like at 3 Mile Island, which was our worst disaster, we released no radiation. And that's again because we had a containment vessel. And if the Soviets had had a containment vessel, Chernobyl would not have released radiation either.
I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard about the reactor was molted and right now coming down.
It was molting. The problem at 3 Mile Island, they had a whole series of problems. But one of the major problems was that the electronics went out. So they didn't know what was happening with the valving for the water. And so they made a series of mistakes on the cooling water because they didn't know what was happening. And now we've set up the electronics better, but the real answer